All right, so now we are going to do a lesson that covers more order of operations. And this time we are going to add another piece to our order of operations, which is grouping symbols, parentheses, and grouping symbols. So parentheses are these little curved symbols here, and sometimes they're used as they look like this, like a little corner on them, brackets, those are called. And when we use parentheses or brackets around a math problem, it forms what we call a group. So when expressions are inside parentheses or brackets, then circle the group as one term, as a single term. So we talked about in our previous lesson that terms are separated by pluses and minuses. But when pluses and minuses are inside parentheses, they are terms inside those, but they're not going to be circled separately. It's going to be one group, and we'll practice doing that so you get used to seeing it as a group. So our first two examples show you what I mean. 8 plus, here's that plus sign, then the quantity, that's how we read it when parentheses appear. 8 plus the quantity, 7 minus 4, minus 2. So the plus signs that we're going to focus on for this section is right here and right here because they are separate. This minus sign is inside parentheses. So we scoop this up as plus the quantity as one amount. So this math problem gets circled up with the plus sign. All right, so there are 3 terms in this expression, and the 3 terms are 8, 7 minus 4, and minus 2. In the second example, we have this problem right here. I'm going to read it so you understand how to read the parenthesis notation. It reads 3 times. Remember, when there's parentheses between 2 numbers, you read it as a multiplication. 3 times the quantity, 2 plus 6, minus the quantity, 7 plus 3. So we're subtracting this quantity right here. We're not subtracting 7, we're subtracting the sum when you add these together. So we have to figure this number out so we know how much to take away. All right, so that's why it gets lumped as one term. It's a math problem we have to do in order to subtract later on. So we circled this one. 3 times the quantity, 2 plus 6, that's your first term. And the second term is take away the quantity 7 plus 3. That's your second term. So they get a little more complicated, but not difficult once you understand how it works. Okay, I'm going to have you practice identifying terms that have grouping symbols, and do that first. So circle the terms and then turn the video back on when you're done circling to make sure you have them circled correctly before we do the funneling. So pause the video, turn it back on when you're done. So you should have circled 3 terms. You should have circled the 24. And then the plus sign is inside, so we take the whole thing, minus the quantity 6 plus 8, plus 5. Now I want you to funnel this down to see if you can get it correct, using the circling to help you guide you as to what you're going to do, and the lines I provided below. So pause the video, fill in the blanks with your funneling steps, performing one operation at a time, and then turn the video back on to see if you were able to do it. All right, you should have gotten the first row has to be 24, and you add what's in those parentheses so you know how much to take away from 24 and plus 5. And then we go left to right. So when we're starting our subtraction off, there's nothing to do to this term. We have to clean this one up so we know how much to subtract. And then we have the plus 5, nothing to do here. So I just bring the 24 down, I do the 6 plus 8, and I bring the 5 down. Once I have it, all numbers that are being added, subtracted, I just work left to right. So I'm going to do 24, take away 14 first, which gives me 10. And then I bring that plus 5 down because you're only doing one operation at a time. That's what your teacher requires. 10 plus 5, 15. So we can see at each step what you're simplifying to get down to the final simplest form, which is 15. Okay, again, the first thing you're going to do on this one is you're going to circle the terms, and then you're going to turn the video back on to make sure you've circled them correctly before you do any of the funneling. So pause the video, circle the terms, turn it back on when you're done. Alrighty. So on this one, you should have circled 2, and then you should have circled this whole thing, plus the quantity 6 plus 4. And then you should have circled this whole thing, plus the quantity 7 minus 3. Now, when you go to do the math, the 2 is ready to roll, but the 6 plus 4 needs to be cleaned up. So you do that math, and you get 10. And you have to do the 7 minus 3. Okay, because here we're adding the whole thing. We're not adding 6, we're adding the 6 and the 4, which is 10. We're adding 10. So you have to replace this with 10. You have to replace this with 4. Okay, now you do 12 plus 4, 16, and you're done. We work left to right. It's all addition though, so it really doesn't matter. Go in any order you want when it's all addition. I just went left to right. Okay, our expressions are going to get more complicated, but no problem because we're going to stick with our plan. We're going to make sure that we start by circling each term, including that plus or minus that is to the left of each term. And then from there, we're going to simplify working left to right in a very organized way, funneling. No equal signs in our work, one operation at a time. And in this, when they get more complicated, we're going to need to use a checklist to keep us in those, following those order of operations that we've been doing so well with as so far. Okay, so this is our checklist. We haven't popped this up yet. I'm going to show you how to use it. All right, so the first thing in this example, it's done for you. First thing was circle the terms. So this term is 3 times the quantity 4 plus 6 minus 2 times 3 to the second power. Now, when you look at this, the reason these are getting more complicated is because there are 2 operations in this term. There's not just one like the ones we've been practicing. We do one and it's cleaned up and we're ready to roll. This has multiplication and addition and parentheses. This one has exponents and multiplication. So each of these terms are a little more complicated than the ones we've dealt with. So this checklist will help us with each of these terms. Okay, it's going to help us figure out how to handle this. So the first thing I'm going to do is look at the first term, this one right here. I'm just going to write that checklist right off to the side next to it, which you can do on your own work while you're working just to keep it straight. So write this down. We're going to look at this term, and this term has what we call grouping symbols. The G stands for grouping symbols. The E stands for exponents. The M, multiplication. I'll put an M here and a D here for multiplication or division. When we have both in our term, we go left to right. We don't always multiply first. Okay, that's a misunderstanding students have because the M is all typically listed first by your teachers. But these don't necessarily go in that order. They go left to right, so we got to remember that. They can be switched. We'll do some examples so you can see what I mean. And then finally, the addition and subtraction at the bottom. When expressions have both addition and subtraction, we go left to right. We've been doing that all along in our previous examples anyway, so it's not new to you. Okay, so I'm looking at this first term and there are grouping symbols and multiplication. So I go to my checklist. It says, hey, do the grouping symbols first. Okay, I'm multiplying 3 times the sum here. The sum is 10. Add them together. Okay, I did not multiply in the same step. I brought the 3 down and I replaced the parentheses with a dot. You can keep the parentheses around the 10 or use a dot, up to you. You can use the X, whatever. All right, so I'm only doing one operation at a time. Students try to do 2 at a time and then they make a mistake and they're like, what'd I do wrong? And I said, I can't tell because you did 2 at the same time, so I'm not sure. You got to show 1 at a time. That'll help us communicate. All right, so we got 3 times 10. And then this one, I go over to this term next because I'm just working each term left to right. This was the first term. I got it taken care of, one operation. I'm here. I'm going to do 3 squared. It's multiplication and exponents. So I go to my checklist. Let me get rid of that grouping symbol circle. I go back to my checklist over here and I go, okay, there's no grouping symbols here. Nope. There are exponents. That's second. If there's exponents, you take care of the exponent. So right here, that's 9. That means 3 times 3. Remember that, not 6. 3 times 3 is 9. So you write your 9 down and you bring your 2 down. And I use the same symbol, a dot, to indicate multiplication. Okay, so I got one operation taken care of from this term, but there are 2. I have to do another one. And there's one operation, I did the exponents on this one. Now I'm ready to clean this term up. 3 times 10 is 30. 2 times 9 is 18. Now I go 30 minus 18. If you need to, you can come off to the side, do that subtraction so you don't make a careless error. If you can't do it in your head, just do it off to the side, and now we're funneling. And I can see at each row when you funnel, and you can see yourself at each row what operation you're taking care of from above and what you're getting. And if there's a mistake made, it's going to be easy for us to find versus doing too many operations at once. We can't tell. A lot of students will put this as 6 here, and then they'll have 12 here, and they'll have the wrong answer here. They'll have 18, and I'll be able to say, hey, it's right here. You just did your exponent wrong. You followed the order of operation. You did all this great work. You just have to study those exponents. So funneling is your friend. It will help us to help you identify when things aren't going as they're supposed to. Okay, we are going to try this right here. There's 2 problems here. We're going to do these together. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to look, and there's only one term. No big deal, just one term here. And looking at this one right here and looking at this one right here, they look very similar. They have the same numbers. They have the same 2 operations. This one has multiplication and exponent. This one has multiplication and exponent. The difference is we're grouping in this one and we're not grouping in this one. So when we go over to our checklist for this first one and we look for grouping symbols, there are none, so we check it off. Then we see that there are exponents right here. So we're going to take care of that first. This is one term, so there's nothing else really to circle like we did in the other problems because there's no pluses or minuses. So we're just going to write 3 times, I'm going to use the dot, I'm going to replace the x with the dot. And this, remember, it's not 4 times 2, it's 4 times 4, and we get 16. Okay, so my exponent is taken care of. Now I'm in the next piece. I have multiplication or division. The only thing there is multiplication. So I'm going to go 3 times 16. If you need to, go off to the side. 6 times 3 is 18. Carry the 1. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4. The answer is 48, or however you may have done that. You probably could have done that one in your head. Okay, so we got 4. If you're going to do work, just do it off to the side, scrap work, or on a scrap sheet of paper, and keep this funneling nice and neat. Okay, so we did the multiply, and we're done with that problem. Okay, I'm going to now use this checklist for my other problem. Right over here. Okay, this one says, hey, you've got grouping symbols, that's those parentheses. We have to do what's inside the grouping symbol before we do the exponent because it's first. So we're going to do the grouping symbol first. 3 times 4 is 12. And the exponent comes down with it. Make sure you make it up here. It's an exponent, so it's smaller and it's kind of floating up there. All right, this is a power or an exponent. All right. So then we're going to raise 12 to the second power. Another way to say that is 12 squared. That means 12 times itself. I'm supposed to have that one memorized. You should get 144. If you don't have it memorized, you have to work it out, and you get 144. Okay, so looking at this, when we just simply use the same exact operations, but we group the 3 times 4 and we put multiplication as a priority because it's in a grouping symbol above the exponent, it changes our answer. These are not equal. So it's real important that you follow those order of operations and use that checklist as a guide when you have more than one operation in a term to help yourself get those correct results. Okay, here's another one where we have a checklist to help us because this has two operations and so does this one. The only difference between these two problems are those grouping symbols. So after we just did this last one, you can imagine that these are probably not going to come out the same, but we'll see. All right, we have 16 divided by 2 squared. We have the quantity 16 divided by 2 squared. So this one says, hey, we're going to come over to our checklist. We have no grouping symbols, we have exponents, and we have division. We are going to do exponents first, and we're going to divide second. It's below the exponent. So 16 stays, and we do that exponent. 2 squared is 4. Now you do 16 divided by 4, and you get 4. All right. Let's go over to our next expression. It also has the same two operations, but they put the grouping symbol on. So when I do this, I am no longer doing division second. It shoots it up inside those grouping symbols. Division is first. 16 divided by 2 is what we're squaring. So I got to divide that, and I get 8 squared. And then 8 squared, exponents is after grouping symbols. I get 8 times 8. Make sure you don't make that mistake. It's not 8 times 2, it's 8 times 8, which is 64. And you're done. So just use this checklist as your guide. It'll help keep you on point. Okay, we're gonna, I want you to pause the video and do step 1. So we're gonna circle the term first. You're gonna pause the video to do that, and then before you do step 2. So pause the video, circle, turn it back on, and see if you circled the terms correctly before we start funneling. Okay, you should have circled 3 times 2 squared. There's no pluses or minuses to separate these. It's just multiplication and exponents. And then here's your minus sign. Here's your next term. It has a plus sign, but since it's in grouping symbols, this is one lump. This reads 3 times 2 squared, that term. Once we figure that term out, then we're going to take away 2 times the quantity 3 plus 1, whatever this turns into. So we're going to write 3. Oh, go ahead and funnel yourself. I want you to use the checklist for this term. Then use the actually, we'll do this one together. All right, so I'm just going to rewrite this checklist on this side for this term. You may want to do this yourself on your paper, just off to the side. It doesn't have to be big. And I'm going to also write it here for this term. So I'm using it for each term. So this one, it says, hey, are there grouping symbols? No. Are there exponents? Yes. So we're going to do those exponents first. 3 times 2 squared. I'm going to write the 3 times 4. I'm not going to do 3 times 4 yet. I'm only going to do one operation at a time. That's that funneling. Minus, okay, so I've got no grouping symbols. I took care of the exponents. My next step is multiplication. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. 3 times 4 is 12. That term is all taken care of right below. Now I'm going to come over to this side and I'm going to handle this chunk. 2 times the quantity 3 plus 1. Well, there are grouping symbols, so I'm going to do that first. 3 plus 1 is 4. So it's 2 times 4. 2 times 4. Now I'm going to put my minus sign in and I'm going to do 2 times 4. There's no exponents. The next one is multiplication. 2 times 4 is 8. And now 12 take away 8 is 4. And you are done. That's that funneling process. So that's what you're going to be practicing here to make sure you've got it in the next few examples. Okay, I want you to do step 1 first, which is circle each term. Turn the video back on before you start funneling to make sure you've circled the terms correctly. Because if you don't have them circled correctly, you'll end up following the incorrect order of ops and will not get to that correct answer. Okay, that's a lot of big terms going on there. We only have 3 of them, but 2 of them have more than one operation to them. So they're nice big chunks that we got to clean up before we can do our bottom of our chart, which is add or subtract. So I recommend you write GEMDAS down, the order of operations that we're going to follow to clean up these terms here. Write that down for this term. So you can check them off as you go. And for this term, just write them off to the side and use them as a guide. Okay, so you're going to go ahead and you're going to simplify this expression using that funneling pattern that we've been doing, one operation at a time in neat rows to see if you can get this correct. So I'm looking for two things, all the rows showing and the correct order to get to that correct answer. We'll pause the video, turn it back on and see how you did. Okay, so the 30 was just a number, so there was nothing to clean up there, but we couldn't just start subtracting because we had to figure this one out. So we did 2 plus 3 is 5. We brought the square down, and we did 5 squared is 25. So it's 30, take away 25. Over here, you have multiplication and division. So we work left to right on that order of ops. So we have to do the multiplication first. 2 times 8 is 16. Bring down the divide 4. And then divide by 4. You get 4. 5 plus 4 is 9. So when we get to this subtraction, remember you work left to right. 30 take away 25 goes first. Addition, and this is where it gets confusing. Kids go, but you have addition first. No, it says left to right, like we read. So this reads 30 minus 25 plus 4. That means we do 30 minus 25 first plus 4. So this is always a left to right. Same with this one right here. Multiplication is listed first in our order, but it's not always first. It happens to be first here, 2 times 8, then divide by 4. But if we reverse these symbols, we would have to divide before we multiply. Left to right for these blocks right here. Okay, so you're going to go ahead and circle the terms, and then when you're done circling, you're going to show how you funnel this. Well, actually, we'll work this one together. It's got a fraction bar. We haven't done that yet. So go ahead, and when we circle the terms, we have this fraction bar here. So I'm going to circle this big chunk. This is one term. You're like, but there's a plus. Shouldn't we circle those? No. Fraction bar is a grouping symbol. So we look at our numerator and we look at our denominator. If I gave you the fraction 8 over 17, you would have two numbers and you'd know what to do with those, okay? Now let's change it. Let's change it to a division parallel. Let's go 18 over 2. You'd be like, oh, that's a division, 18 divided by 2, because these are just numbers. But our term here has a math problem on top and a math problem on the bottom. So I don't know what I'm going to divide by yet. I have to do that addition. And I don't know what I'm dividing into because it's not simplified. I need to simplify both of these pieces of this big term right here. Okay, so a fraction bar says do what's in the numerator. If there's something to do, do it. That's 5 squared. It says simplify the denominator. If there's math to do, do it. And then you'll be able to divide after you have simplified both those. So it groups operations in the top and the bottom to be simplified before you can do that division. Remember, this is a division symbol. Okay, and our next term is plus 8. All right, so I'm looking at this first term and I have to do what's in the top because it's grouped. Then I have to do what's in the bottom because it's grouped by that fraction bar. And then I have to do the plus 8. Now I can take care of that final operation, which is division. So it was exponents first, addition second, and then my fraction bar, 25 divided by 5 is 5, plus 8, and now I simply add. Okay, if I were to rewrite this the long way, it would look like this. 5 squared divided by the quantity 3 plus 2. Okay, and that would be one big term. You'd look at this term and say, hey, I would add first because it's a grouping symbol. I'd square next because exponents comes next. and I divide last. And that is exactly what we did. As you can see, I think this is a simpler way than using that fraction bar instead of this symbol right here. It makes it less complicated. So that's why I think in the algebra world, they went with the fraction bar to just make it visually easier to see what you do first and second with that grouping symbol rather than using this symbol and having to use parentheses. All right, so just trying to make things visually simpler so you understand what to do, that fraction bar. Okay, circle the terms and then simplify the expression, working each term using the checklist. And then turn the video back on when you're done. See how you did. Okay, so you should have circled the 2 times the quantity 4 squared, and you should have circled the minus 27 over 3 times 2. So your first term, you have parentheses, but they're not really considered a grouping symbol here because there's no operations inside those parentheses. These parentheses are here because it's indicating that you're going to multiply 2 times 4 to the second power. They're here for a multiplication symbol. So we're going to look here. I have multiplication and I have an exponent. I'm going to take care of the exponent first. 4 squared. 4 squared is not 8. Remember, 4 times 4 is 16. So it's 16. 2 times 16 is 32. All right, so I've got that term whittled down to 32. So now I know what I'm going to take away from. You come up to this next term and we got 27 divided by 3 times 2. So I don't have grouping symbols for that next one. I don't have exponents, but I'm here in this block. And it says work left to right. So we do division first. 27 divided by 3 is 9. And 9 times 2 is 18. Sometimes you'll see the 27 divided by 3 in this form. And again, we would do the division first. And we would still get 18. But here they use the fraction bar. All right, so then 32 take away 18 is 14. If you need to, off to the side, do your vertical math to make sure you don't make careless errors taking 18 from 32 in your head. If you don't need that, that's fine. Just keep this funneling going right here. Nice and neat. All right, that concludes the notes for this piece on order of operations. And you're going to now go practice independently to see how you're doing with this. Good luck.